Today, I'd love to talk about what most people think of as our spirituality being kind of connected to something larger. And in kind of conventional space, it feels so irrelevant to most people, like spirituality. Oh, that's something you do kind of on the side, but then you go to work, right? And what I'd like to explore with you here is what does it mean to live out our spirituality, to explore our spirituality and how it relates to the most practical everyday experience of being human. Being able to access this sort of ground of being that is not flooded with our egoic concerns, right? And our kind of fighting reality that the separate self is naturally, it's sort of, that's its job in a certain sense to be trying to figure things out and trying to claim authority and to get esteem from others and sort of kind of manage its life so that there's a sense of, oh, I'm all figured out and I'm kind of whole in and of myself and I don't need anyone and that sort of thing. But when, as you were talking about with Hubi, is when we're able to actually be with what is as it is arising and not fight it, there's a sort of there's an upswelling of spontaneous joy and peace that is actually even more natural than even what the ego is trying to do, right? It's actually more fundamental to reality. And one, yeah, it's maybe I have a follow-up question to that, but perhaps we could just explore this realm that you're describing, which could be likened to the sense we talk about true self of like resting in the ground of being, right? And kind of the many ways that we can access this. There's a framework that we're both familiar with, is the 1, 2, 3 of God, or the three faces of spirit, which describe, which sort of point out three doorways to what is, to ultimately what is real in reality. One of the things I've learned over the years, and I'm so grateful for learning about it through Mark Goffney and the Unique Self teaching, is that in a certain way, many of the kind of classic pathways through each of these doors, the first, second, and third person of spirit, tend to focus on the one, in the various understandings of it, right? So in the third person, let's just look at even kind of nature mysticism is realizing that in nature we can see how everything is interconnected and unified, right? Which is actually demonstrating the principles of all of reality, which is unified and miraculously one, right? And so person kind of focusing on third person doorways to spirit may even be studying and learning about how everything is actually one. There's actually no separation in everything, right? Similarly, in the second person, a lot of traditions typically focus on surrendering to the divine and devoting, sacrificing the self for the sake of for the sake of Lord, our Lord and Savior, right? Or um, um, put all of your, how does the quote go about the Buddha? Kind of give all of your, put all of your, I don't remember how the quote goes, something about, you know, give yourself to the Buddha, right? Sort of surrender the self to the second person realization of spirit, of the divine, be in devotion to that. And similarly, in the first person, the classical way to access that, the classical path, is to realize that I am not my body, I am not my feelings, I am not my thoughts, I am awareness. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Ultimately leading to this realization that I am that, as you mentioned, right? As sort of, I am actually no self. There's a no self there. There's a sense that I'm one with all that is. And all of those three are kind of classical, let's say, true self, realizations. And we can spend our whole lives practicing and studying and focusing on that, and it would be exquisite, and it's infinite. There's no end to it, right? And, however, and when we look at each of those doorways through a unique self lens, we can actually realize that, wait a minute, in the third person doorway, it's not just that everything is connected and unified, but that everything is interdependent, and every node in that interdependent web is a unique node, right? Every tree in the forest is uniquely needed by every other, aspect and in its niche and in everything around it, right? There's a way in which there's a unique interrelationships between all things, right? And so it's not just that everything is one and connected, but everything that's expressed in that interconnectedness is a unique expression of the one. Yeah, and every moment is a new experience of it, right? Right. So the relationships and the nodes are unique. So, in other words, we're actually honoring the expression of the manifest cosmos and how this is working. And then similarly, in second person, when I'm in devotion to God, it's actually a devotion between two, actually a unique perspective of God. So, I've since, I practice spirituality from the Christian tradition, the Ignatian spirituality from Saint Ignatius, and a lot of the language that's used is, I'm in obedience to the Lord, and looking at my sins and all that stuff. But I've updated it myself that I'm not in obedience to my Lord, but I'm in devotion to my beloved. It's a two direction. There's dignity in both directions, right? And so I pray to God, I pray to my beloved, and God prays to me, actually, because if God is the infinite intimate, it's sort of fractals of infinite relationships and relational, mutuality as far and as deep as you want to go with it. And so yeah, so like I can actually, God, I am a unique expression of God, expressing my love for God. And so, of course, it's not about merely suppressing myself and merely sacrificing myself, because I was implanted by God with who I am, right? Which leads me to the first person doorway. So again, just sort of distinguishing, being kind of like the true self accessing each of these doorways, and then the unique self accessing each of these doorways. I am not just, it's not that I am that or that thou art that, but thou art a unique expression of that, right? And so when I realize I'm not merely my feelings, my thoughts, and my sensations, I can then realize, oh, but there are, I do appear to have my own unique experience of all of these sensations, feelings, and thoughts. And so reality is having a unique experience as me, as who I am, right? And so which so that's kind of just that distinction, being with what is, and there's nothing more practical than being with what is and finding that joy and peace. And if we take a unique self distinction onto that, being with what is oftentimes is being with my deepest heart's desire and being with my unique perspective and unique set of needs, right? Unique gifts to give. When we access our unique self, there's something that happens in the relationship that we have to our daily life. Accessing our deepest heart's desire, which connects us to spirit in first person, right? To God in first person, living through us, wanting to evolve the cosmos through us. And we don't even have to know that that's what's wanting to happen, right? But that's just what's happening. And so by accessing our deepest heart's desire, it's our compass through how to live our life. And if we think that spirituality is over here and then I got to go to my day job here, what that means is basically we're willing to simply be limited to our egoic need for comfort and survival and esteem and achievement on one side, and so our compass is forever going to be guided by that, and by its very nature be split off from the core, from really who we are and the source of our deepest aliveness, right? So that's why I just think, like, when people split those, and of course I've done it at points in my life, to split those two as being these separate things. It's because it's really, in certain ways, it's because of the assumption that I have to leave my story behind in order to be spiritual, which is precisely what unique self is saying is not the case. Unique self is revolutionary because it brings all those worlds together, right? And where we're actually connected with who we really are in our unique expression, our unique desire, clarifying our unique perception, and actually feeling our unique presence, which is not easy to do if we're stuck in the kind of egoic trappings of the world, where our presence is often hijacked by these sort of incessant need to kind of be doing things all the time, or to look good, or to sound good, or kind of the reputation, what all these things, it sort of trips the process of experiencing who we really are, our own sense of presence, our groundedness, our aliveness, right? And so when we're able to access all of that, it leads us to a life worth living, right? And it leads us to a life where we can trust our desires, and we can trust that our gifts are needed and that we can give them. We don't have to struggle and force and fight our way to be able to do the thing that we're supposed to do. Not that it's always easy all the time, right? But certainly we have to put in effort at some point, but it comes from an upswelling, kind of a deep spring of eros. There we go. I brought in eros. I was hoping to bring in eros. Eros being the energy that moves the whole cosmos, that lives uniquely through us, right? And moves us towards more wholeness and interconnectivity and aliveness and giving our gifts. And it's within an evolutionary context, right? So in other words, it's not merely like, oh, I'm just going to switch it on and everything's unified and connected. It's every moment we have an option to choose one step closer to our deepest heart's desire, or one step further away. You know, we're always experiencing allurement toward our destiny of being fully awake and alive as our unique expressions that we are. And every day is an opportunity to kind of integrate one more aspect of that, one more piece, one more node, if you will, in the unified field is integrated within who we are. And, you know, let's say we're parenting and it's like, oh, I don't have time for spirituality. And, you know, we can actually pause and just look at our child and realize how beautiful they are, and how the challenges that I'm experiencing working with them, and how much I get upset about this and that, and how I'm just exhausted. Every crisis is an evolutionary driver, right? And that's how this context of evolution works, is every challenge is an evolutionary catalyst towards more being more awake and alive as who we really are meant to be. We go to work, and if we experience ourselves, or at least believe that that's the potential and possibility, that we are a unique expression, that we're meant to give our unique gifts to the unique circle of influence that's around us, then we can see every interaction with our coworker as evolution in action, right? That, oh, you know, I've got this project to work on. How do I synergize with these people? How do I learn and discover their different talents and skills and intentions and desires? And how do I align them with mine? And how do we align them together with an overall purpose, which can align with evolutionary purpose, right? Kind of a larger purpose. And you have a lot of organizations, well, not a lot maybe, but kind of leading edge organizations transforming the way they function so that they invite the whole person to show up in service to an evolutionary purpose. That's actually, you know, teal organizations, they call themselves, that focus on this. And that's also kind of built on the integral framework, right? Is when we have more of unique self realization coming online in the everyday world of organizational work, for example, right? But it's a process, it's an unfolding, it's a clarification, as you mentioned earlier, of who we are. And every moment we're searching and seeking and listening for what it is to be in service to the fullest expression of our gifts in the world.